just about had enough of Mr. Trump's sort of bloviation and silly remarks, to be blunt. Now, having said that, the Tomahawk is not some sort of miracle weapon that the Russians should be desperately afraid of. I don't think that's the issue. It has a 1,500-mile range, but that depends on the variant of the Tomahawk we're talking about. There's a Tomahawk you fire from a bomber. There's a Tomahawk that is launched from a submarine. There's a Tomahawk that could be launched from a destroyer, an Aegis-class destroyer. Then there is a ground-based Tomahawk that the Army developed. I don't know how many of them there are. I don't even know what the Tomahawk inventory is, but from personal experience back in 1998, 99, the inventory is not that large. And if you think you're going to launch Tomahawks in one theater before you do, there is usually cross-leveling between regional unified commands to make sure the unified command that's about to use Tomahawks actually has enough of them. I imagine that we are probably low in terms of our inventory of Tomahawks, especially new ones. We have a lot of old ones sitting around with questionable reliability. Perhaps we'll throw those into the mix. But again, what can we give to the Ukrainians? And the logical answer is, well, we could give them the ground-launched version, which the Army has. But that's going to take American mission planning and execution. That means you're going to have American soldiers, or at least contractors, on the ground with it. It has a unique warhead. I don't know how many of those warheads are online and ready for use. Then there is the 40-foot container version of the Tomahawk. That could be mounted on a barge and then launched out of this box, the way you see missiles launched from ships. I guess you could put it on the track bed of a rail car. I don't know. I mean, this depends on how far along we are. And again, how many of these things do we have? Now, having said that, this is not a missile that flies fast enough to avoid being detected on radar. Tomahawk missiles were downed during the Kosovo air campaign by the Serbs. They shot them down. Now, they had an advantage because you were operating through Albania and through the mountains, and there were only so many places the Tomahawks could penetrate, whereas in Eastern Europe, you've got a much wider range, 1,100 miles to choose from in terms of where you might launch from. But I don't think the Russians are that concerned about the missile per se. However, given its range, if even one or two or three of these got through and absolutely hit targets in civilian neighborhoods, which is what the Ukrainians like to target, they've shot weapons and various missile systems, rockets, and conventional munition into civilian neighborhoods. And if that were to happen and a large number of Russians were injured or killed, I think the pressure on Mr. Putin to respond would be enormous. And I'm not sure how he would respond, because everybody knows this is an American weapon. People will know that it could not be fired without American military personnel or contract personnel on the ground operating it. I think the temptation to launch large numbers of Oreshniks that could strike targets all the way from Lithuania to Romania would be enormous. I mean, people in Russia, and I don't think Americans have any idea what this is like, are really fed up by the whole thing. This is analogous to a situation where, the Russians or the Chinese or somebody put similar missiles, cruise missiles, into Mexico, put them into the hands of the drug cartels, and then said, do your worst, and walked away. What would we do under those circumstances? Would we simply blame the cartels? No. I think we would go after Russian or Chinese targets. My concern is that would happen here in Eastern Europe if President Trump decides to press ahead with it, on the grounds that the Russians have failed to come around and stop the war per direction.
Colonel, are they nuclear capable?
I don't think any of the ones that we have right now in the theater are. There may be nuclear capable Tomahawks, but the ones that would be used, no, I don't think so. I think they would all have conventional warheads.
Going back to